What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods back with another interview, man. And we are joined by Austin Peay Linebacker, multiple time all OVC selection. Jack McDonald is with us today. So I appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And so you were a standout, up in Brentwood in high school, man. You played both ways, H-back. You also led the team in tackles. Looking all the way back to your high school recruitment, man, which teams were recruiting you the hardest out of high school?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to get my recruiting out of the way early. So I actually committed to Austin Peay the year before my senior year. And that was honestly the best decision. I was the first commit in that class. And so I really wasn't I came to Austin Peay as a walk on. And so I wasn't highly recruited coming out of high school. But for Austin Peay to give me that chance and for me to feel like that was the best spot for me to be at, that was a huge key for me.
Yeah, and I kind of want to follow up on that too. So we see a lot of the players nowadays being recruited. The early players like that role of being the lead recruiter. Like we see players joke about being the director of recruiting if they're one of the first recruits. How do you take that role and how do you balance being close and friends with all these other recruits and avoiding over recruiting?
Well, I think mainly you just have to kind of build a relationship with the people that you're going to be trying to play with, really. I mean, those are going to be your friends. So you want to not only treat them like recruits when you first commit, but treat them like your friends, like talk to them how it is, be real with them. I think that's what recruits especially want to know. And when they want to go to a school that you're already going to, I think being real with them and, being their friend and trying to get on board for them to come to that school. I think that's a huge key.
Yeah, and looking back, so you said you committed early, you knew Austin Peay's where you wanted to be, you walked on there, everything like that. What was it about Austin Peay that made you want to commit immediately and make you want to go there?
I think it was just the atmosphere, the coaches. I knew right when Austin Peay was giving me an opportunity to play there, I knew that that was a place that's the best fit for me. It's an hour away from my hometown, so I can anytime I need to go back home, I can. But it's also not too close. But Austin Peay was just a great fit for me, and I'm so glad that I made that decision.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great decision. You guys have been doing real well in the OVC, but I was looking back, kind of doing some research on you. You're one of the best linebackers in the FCS now, but I did see you made a move to tight end early in your career in 2018. What was that like, and why did you decide to move back to the defensive side of the ball after that?
Well, they recruited me as an H back coming out of high school because that was the only spot really they had. And so when I walked on as an H back and basically was just doing scout team stuff. But I redshirted my freshman year because of how much weight how much weight I needed to gain. I still say that I was probably the smallest Division One tight end in the history of college football, but that transition back to defense was big for me because playing defense in high school and I was something I was used to being on the defensive side of the ball. That's always been comfortable for me, and so when the coach Powell, my linebacker coach now, called me and wanted me to come to the defense side of the ball, is a no-brainer for me. Especially that I just wanted to be on the field at that point in time, and so doing that transition it was easy for me, and I'm glad that I did it.
Yeah, and I mean, it paid off. Preseason All American, you were an All American this spring, honorable mentions, and I think you won. It was like one or two players of the weeks this past season, so paid off big time. And I want to talk about last season because you guys were kind of thrust into the spotlight, man. You guys in Central Arkansas were almost like it was like the test game of the year. Everybody in the country was like, this game's going to decide whether we have a season or not. And did you guys feel any pressure as a team being the first game of the season, knowing every single person who cares about college football in the country was going to be looking to y'all to make sure the season kicked off right?
I don't think the pressure was there. I think that we were just glad to be in that spotlight like we were. We had worked hard on the off season, battling all this stuff with COVID, everything like that. I think there wasn't much pressure to it because we didn't really treat it like that, but it was just being in that spotlight, and that's basically a dream come true for a lot of those guys. And it was just honestly a blast playing in that game in front of the nation like it was.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had people, we cover FCS football on the podcast, so like we were tuned in anyway. But I had friends who have never watched Austin Peay or Central Arkansas, and they were like, "I have this game like recorded. I'm going to watch it throughout the week." I mean, you guys were on the biggest stage in the country, man. It was like a national championship game. But looking at your game now as a player, man, since you stepped on campus as a freshman to now, how has your game evolved?
I would say that my game's evolved with how fast the game goes. Coming out of high school and transitioning into that college football, I think speed is the big difference. So transitioning into not only physical, like having on the field speed, but also mentally having play recognition, different things like that. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I know the speed of the game definitely increases, and like you even mentioned before, how much it's slowed down for you. And looking at your game now, just overall, what's your biggest strength as a linebacker right this second?
I would say my football IQ, being able to recognize different formations, being able to recognize the plays that tendencies that other teams usually do. I think that's probably my biggest thing. It's something that I've worked on and something that my coaches have helped me with as well. And so I think right now, in this point in time, I think that's my biggest strength.
And on the flip side, you don't have to, put everything out there for all your opponents, man. But what's one thing when you look at your game that you would like to improve to take your game to the next level?
I think just technique, just little stuff. I think there's always things that I can work on, things that I can clean up, whether that's footwork, hand placement, just different things like that. I just think technique it puts you so much forward than people realize. So I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, and I don't feel like linebackers. I've been vocal on this podcast that linebackers, especially inside linebackers, don't get enough credit for being the quarterback of the defense. Everyone always talks about how hard it is for the quarterback to know what everyone's going to do, but that's also kind of your job as the linebacker to get the defense in the position. How much film study do you do the week leading into a game?
A lot of film study, at least once a day, if not more. Um, like I've mentioned before, Coach Powell, my linebacker coach, he's big on film watching, and he'll always set me up whenever I need to watch film. And sometimes I'll just go and get lunch and bring it up to his office and watch it with him, usually a few times a week. So I think it's been a help for me as well, being able to watch the type of that film and seeing what teams do. So I think film study is a big part of it.
Absolutely. So when you turn on the film, man, what are the biggest things you're looking for? Which positions are you looking at? And what exactly when you turn on the film is like your most important thing where it's like if I watch an offense, I have to figure out this thing.
I would say key players is one of the main things. Being aware where those key players are and where they are at in different formations, because sometimes it tells you what plays coming, where those key players are, and so I think that's one of the biggest things that I look for because, like I said, I mean it can take you to the ball, and that's like kind of if you point out those key players and see where they are.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so, looking ahead to this season, man, Austin P is one of the favorites in the OVC this year to make a big run. Just personally inside the building, what are the team goals for Austin P for this season?
Yeah, first thing we want to do is win the Sergeant York Trophy, and if you don't know what the Sergeant York Trophy is, it's to beat all the teams in Tennessee in our conference. That's just the inside the conference battle that we have. Second one is to win the conference. We did it in 2019, but we're done looking on the past. We want to go forward and win the conference again. And the last one's to win the national championship. Nobody can tell us that we can't, and we think that we're able to accomplish that.
Oh man, absolutely. And the OVC is I think one of the most competitive FCS conferences. Whoever comes out of the OVC has to be a favorite. And I know it's always team first goals, and these goals that I'm about to ask you about will be achieved if you guys win the national championship. But what are some personal goals, accolades that you're aiming for the 2021 season?
I think main thing I want to do is win a national championship, and I think all of the accolades will fall after that. Just doing my part, like we say on our team, just do your 111. I think if I do my 111, the accolades will fall after that. I don't try to strive for certain accolades, but I want to win that national championship and get a ring for sure.
Hey, the ring's always way nicer because I know some of these media people, man, the ones that vote for the All Americans, sometimes they are just off base with it. So I completely agree with you there. But I know you're a senior leader on this defense. And every time I have a senior on the podcast, they're the ones that always gives me the political answers. The first game's the most important. But you can say that, but just put a but after that for me, man. Which game on the 2021 schedule are you looking forward to the most?
I think one of the biggest games is always is Murray. That's our probably in conference rival. I think that's always a big game, and that's always a game that they look forward to and that we look forward to as well. I mean, it's called the Battle of the Border, and so it's always a fun game. And Murray's a really good team. They're picked preseason #1 in our conference, and so I think that game this year is going to be a big deal.
I'm looking forward to it. We had Malik Honeycutt from Murray State, and he said the same thing. He was like, Austin Peay is the one that I think everybody has circled, and that's probably going to be the battle of the best two teams in the OVC this year as well. But there's a lot of people who may be overlooking you guys in terms of the OVC race, and especially the FCS playoff race. What's your message to the fans and/or teams who are sleeping on Austin Peay coming into the season?
One thing I would say is that Austin Peay, or not only Austin Peay, the entire OVC deserves respect. I think the OVC in general just gets kind of looked over in some ways, especially going into like playoff committee and selections like that. I think the OVC deserves, because this conference is, in my opinion, one of the best in the nation. From top to bottom, teams are competitive, they're tough, and no game is just a give me. And so I think just how tough the OVC is, I think that's what people need to realize.
Yeah, man, I like it, and because iron sharpens iron. If you go through a weak conference, it's kind of hard to compete down the line. But these last group of questions, man, are to kind of get to know you better, kind of get a sense of how you just operate on the field. Which NFL linebacker do you model your game after and look up to the most?
The main person I've kind of watched and kind of look at is Luke Kuechly, even though that he is retired now. I've tried to look at his film and try to just copy what he does because he's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best to ever do it. And so I think Luke Kuechly is the big one for me.
Oh yeah, man, he's a monster too. I mean that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people realize how good. I think he was one of those players that he wasn't flashy, but like if you actually watched the film and looked at the stats, he was easily a top two linebacker like his whole career.
Oh, definitely. He's a technician for sure.
Oh man, I love it. But this is I always try to find one for each position. So what's more important to a linebacker, vision or speed?
Vision for sure. I think being able to see where the ball is going, what your keys in front of you are. I think vision, it starts to play. I think if you're able to see it, the quicker you'll be able to be. And so for a linebacker, I think vision's the big thing.
I like that answer. And so I know that, especially the rivalry against Murray State, it can get kind of chippy, man. But week in and week out, how big of a trash talker are you during the game? Are you in the quarterback's face a little bit? The offense, because I know, listen, I used to be an offensive lineman. I know we talk a lot of trash. So are you a big trash talker during the game?
I'm usually not a big trash talker during the game. I'm the one that kind of tries to provoke people and to trash talking me because I like to draw the flag and then I just walk away from it smiling and laughing. But I don't like to talk trash. I just like to play the game, really.
Oh man, I like that. You said, listen, I'll take the 15 yards our way, and you could go back and be mad. You're the first person to say that on the show, and I love that answer. I was not expecting that. But looking back on your career, man, who is the best quarterback and running back that you've ever faced?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many good ones. I don't know if I can be able to pick one, honestly. There's no name that comes to mind. We've played Cincinnati last year or 2020, and so there's no name for running back and quarterback that I can really think of because there's been so many good ones, honestly.
Oh yeah, I was expecting you to mention Cincinnati because Desmond Ritter. I mean, he's
Yeah,
he's a stud at quarterback. So
he's the real deal. That's for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. So, despite all the accolades, the defensive player of the weeks, the all-American list, everything like that, how do you stay motivated, man? What keeps you motivated year in and year out?
I think just staying driven, being able to focus and go out there, whether it's in practice, meetings, just giving it your all. I think that's been a big thing for me, and just also trying to prove people wrong, not only for my sake, but for also Austin Peay. I think that keeps me motivated, and just to keep proving people wrong. That's always been my thing. I've been doubted my entire life, and so knowing that and having a chip on my shoulder and playing like it, I think that's a huge factor for me.
It definitely comes off on the film, man. You play just so aggressively, and for a linebacker, man, you love to see it. But last question here, man. If an NFL franchise pulls you aside after this season and asks what they're going to get if they take you next April in the draft, and what are they getting in Jack McDonald? What are you telling them?
I would say that it's someone who's going to give it their all, no matter what they tell me to do, no matter what position, special, no matter what it is. It's somebody that's going to be loyal to the program. Something that you're going to get somebody that they don't have to worry about off the field. I'm going to do things right. And so that I think that's the main thing that I would tell NFL teams, because I'm be 100% committed to it.
Man, I like it. I'm expecting to hear your name called too, man. So good luck on your season and everything like that, man. I'll be following real closely. And hey, after y'all win the OVC and make that playoff run, man, we'll have to get you back on with all the hardware and everything like that. But I really appreciate you coming on, man. But this is your time, man. Where can they find you on social media? Any NIL deals? Any shout outs you want to give, man? This time's yours.
Yeah, really only social media I have is Jack Jack underscore MC3. That's my Instagram and Twitter. That's where I'm active on social media. I don't have any NIL deals right now at the time. That those are still in the works, but that's where you can find me on social media.
Oh man, I like it, guys. Make sure to go follow Jack. As I always say at the end of our episodes, man, the more follows and interactions they get on their social media, the better NIL deals they can set themselves up with. So make sure to support the players. Go follow Jack. Make sure to support Austin Peay this year throughout their season, man. We'll definitely be staying in touch. But for Jack, guys, for myself and for the Blue Bloods, we are out.